Are you tired of watching brilliance go unnoticed, potential go untapped, and strength go uncelebrated, simply because the world often mislabels quiet confidence as weakness? This message is not just for every woman. It's for every smart woman, the kind of woman who knows that success isn't just about applause, beauty, or popularity. It's about living with bold clarity, deep values, and unstoppable purpose. In this powerful video, we're diving into *** 7 unbreakable rules smart women live by *** rules that aren't taught in school, but learned through experience, resilience, and conviction. If you've ever felt the pressure to compromise your standards, shrink to fit in, or silence your voice to keep the peace, this speech is your wake-up call. Because smart women don't play small. They rise, they lead, and they change the game. Not by shouting the loudest, but by standing the strongest. You're not here by accident. You clicked on this video for a reason. Stay with us, because by the end, you won't just feel motivated. You'll feel unshakable. Smart women never compromise their values for approval, because they understand that who they are is not up for negotiation. In a world that constantly pressures people, especially women, to conform, to be liked, to fit into expectations that often contradict their own convictions, the strength to stand firm in your principles becomes rare and powerful. Approval might open a few doors in the short term, but it closes the door to self-respect if it comes at the cost of integrity. A smart woman knows that when you give up your values, you lose your compass. And when your compass is gone, you'll find yourself lost in environments, relationships, and choices that were never meant for you in the first place. Approval from others is addicting because it feels like validation. It feels like proof that you're doing something right, but smart women recognize the trap. What starts as a nod of acceptance can quickly turn into a leash of dependence. If you shift who you are to make others comfortable, you'll spend your life shifting into a version of yourself that isn't real. You can't fake authenticity, and you certainly can't build a meaningful life on a foundation of pretending. The moment you begin compromising your beliefs to fit in, you start building a life that belongs to someone else. Smart women don't play that game. They'd rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by applause for a lie. This kind of integrity demands courage. It's not easy to say no when everyone else is saying yes. It's not easy to walk away from a job, relationship, or friendship that's popular on the outside but rotten on the inside. But smart women don't measure the value of their decisions by how many people agree with them. They measure it by how aligned those decisions are with their character. This kind of self-awareness is what makes them trustworthy, consistent, and powerful, not because they have something to prove, but because they have something they refuse to lose, their identity. When you refuse to compromise your values, you set a silent but strong example. You become the mirror that reflects back to others what it looks like to live with boundaries, with clarity, with strength. People may not always agree with you, but they will respect you, and more importantly, you will respect yourself. Smart women don't seek permission to be who they are. They don't adapt to spaces that don't honor their standards. They raise the standard simply by refusing to lower it for anyone. Smart women protect their time like it's gold, because they understand it's the only resource they can never get back. Time is not just about minutes on a clock. It's about energy, attention, and presence. Where you spend your time reveals what you value. That's why smart women don't just let anyone or anything have access to it. They're not rude. They're clear, and clarity is power. When you protect your time, you protect your focus, your peace, your growth, and ultimately your future. Smart women know that saying yes to the wrong things is the fastest way to delay the right ones. They don't fall for the illusion that being busy means being productive. They're not impressed by a packed schedule. They're focused on purpose, not performance. In a world that glamorizes hustle and praises overcommitment, smart women do something radical. They slow down and choose with intention. They pause before responding to invitations. They weigh the emotional and spiritual cost of giving their time to people or activities that drain them. They don't feel guilty for declining what doesn't align with their priorities. Why? Because they've learned the difference between being nice and being wise. They don't allow fear of disappointing others to steal their time. They've lived long enough to know that everyone will always want something from you, but not everyone deserves access to you. Every yes has a hidden no. Say yes to that one extra meeting, and you're saying no to rest. Say yes to pleasing everyone, and you're saying no to honoring your own needs. Smart women don't operate from guilt. They operate from clarity. They plan their days with purpose, not pressure. They reserve their mornings for silence, their evenings for recovery, and their weekends for what truly matters. They know that protecting their time isn't selfish, it's strategic, because when your schedule reflects your values, you start to live with direction instead of distraction. This mindset helps smart women build meaningful lives. They don't rush through the hours, they invest them. They don't react to life. They respond with thought and care. They aren't available for drama, distractions, or anything that leads them away from the person they're becoming. They understand that mastering time is about mastering self. And when you master your time, you don't just stay busy, you become unstoppable. That's why smart women never hand over the steering wheel of their time to anyone else. They know the future is not created in some distant place. It's built minute by minute, day by day, with the choices they make now. Smart women never apologize for having standards because they know that standards are not about being picky. They're about being purposeful. Standards are boundaries with clarity, and clarity protects value. When a woman knows who she is, what she stands for, and where she's going, she refuses to settle for less than what aligns with her vision. She understands that lowering her standards doesn't make her more lovable. It makes her more forgettable, and she's not here to be forgotten. She's here to build a life that reflects the strength of her mind, the depth of her values, and the excellence of her character. Smart women don't entertain relationships, environments, or habits that compromise their peace or identity. They've seen what happens when they ignore red flags, and they've learned that hope is not a strategy. They no longer wait for people to change. Instead, they align with people who are already walking in the same direction. They know that having standards isn't about arrogance. It's about alignment. And when something doesn't align, they don't try to force it to fit. They let go with grace and walk away with wisdom, because anything that costs them their self-respect is too expensive. In a world where being chill and easygoing is often praised, smart women choose to be intentional and discerning. They are not afraid to speak up, to walk away, or to say this is not for me. And when they say no, it's not because they're being difficult. It's because they've made peace with the fact that not everything deserves a yes. They don't need approval to live with integrity. They've learned that standards attract what's meant for them and filter out what's not, and that filter is their freedom. Smart women also understand that standards don't just apply to other people, they apply to themselves. They hold themselves accountable to grow, to heal, to rise, and to lead. They know that what they tolerate in themselves sets the tone for what they'll accept from others, so they work on becoming the kind of person who doesn't just demand excellence but lives it. They speak truth, walk in discipline, and live with dignity. They build standards into their words, their actions, and their relationships. These women are not hard to love. They just refuse to be loved in half-measured ways. They've waited, prayed, cried, and fought too long to waste their progress on people or paths that dilute their power. So when they choose with wisdom. When they speak, they speak with intention. And when they walk with purpose, because smart women don't chase approval. They live by principle, and that principle is what sets them apart. Smart women never give their energy to people who drain them because they understand that their energy is sacred. It fuels their purpose, protects their peace, and powers their productivity. They are deeply aware that not everyone deserves access to their time, their presence, or their attention. They've come to learn, often through pain, that constantly pouring into others who never pour back leaves them empty, so they no longer apologize for protecting their space or saying no to people who only take. They don't explain their boundaries because they know real respect doesn't need clarification. It's either present or it's not. These women have walked through seasons where they were everything for everyone and nothing for themselves. They've sacrificed sleep, dreams, and mental health trying to fix people who didn't want to be fixed, trying to save people who didn't want to be saved. And they realized that every time they said yes to someone draining, they were saying no to themselves. That realization was the wake-up call. Now they guard their energy like their life depends on it, because it does. Smart women understand that not all company is healthy, not all support is sincere, and not all connections are meant to last. They can spot manipulation wrapped in kindness. They can sense guilt trips dressed as concern, and they refuse to carry the weight of someone else's emotional immaturity. They're done being emotional dumpsters for people who only show up to unload their chaos. They are no longer flattered by attention. They are moved by consistency, integrity, and mutual effort. They invest their energy in what elevates them: relationships that sharpen their character, communities that support their growth, and routines that feed their soul. They've learned that real connection doesn't feel heavy. It feels honest, safe, and reciprocal. And if it's not that, it's not worth the cost. These women choose stillness over drama, solitude over toxic company, and boundaries over burnout. Because they know their peace is not a luxury, it's a necessity. When they feel someone pulling them into emotional warfare, they disengage. When they notice patterns of disrespect, they don't argue, they exit. When they see that someone only reaches out in crisis, but never celebrates their joy, they quietly create distance, not from hate, but from wisdom. They've learned that giving too much to the wrong people is the fastest way to lose themselves. And they've come too far to go back to that place. Smart women don't chase people. They attract what matches their energy. They stay close to what fuels their light and let go of what dims it. Their energy is not for sale, not for rent, and not for draining. It's reserved for building, growing, healing, and thriving, because that's what smart women do. They protect their power by protecting their peace. Smart women never sacrifice their values for approval because they understand that the cost of self-betrayal is far too great. They know that their values are the core of who they are, not just guiding principles, but anchors that keep them grounded in a world constantly trying to sway them. These women are not interested in popularity if it means compromising their integrity. They have outgrown the phase of dimming their light, watering down their truth, or pretending to be someone they're not just to fit in or be accepted by people who never really saw them to begin with. They understand that approval is fleeting, inconsistent, and often rooted in the expectations of others who don't carry their burdens or live their life. They know that when you live for validation, you'll die by rejection. So they no longer chase applause, they chase alignment. They choose to live in a way that reflects their deepest convictions, even if that means standing alone. Because solitude with integrity is better than company that requires you to wear a mask. They don't shift to please the room. They show up as themselves and let the room adjust. These women have learned that the opinions of others are not worth more than their self-respect. They refuse to trade authenticity for acceptance, no matter how tempting it may seem in the moment. They've discovered that when you betray yourself to be liked, you still end up feeling empty, because the version of you they liked wasn't even real. Smart women don't perform for approval, they live in truth, and that truth sets them free. In their relationships, careers, and personal lives, they draw clear lines. If something contradicts their values, they walk away. No job title, relationship status, or opportunity is worth the erosion of their character. They've faced the uncomfortable consequences of choosing integrity over convenience, and though it's not always easy, it's always worth it, because they sleep well at night knowing they didn't sell themselves short or betray their soul. Smart women understand that living with integrity builds something stronger than a reputation. It builds self-trust. And when you trust yourself, you stop needing the world to validate you. That self-trust becomes the foundation for bold decisions, fearless boundaries, and unshakable confidence. They walk with a quiet strength that doesn't demand attention, but commands respect. And they inspire others not by being perfect, but by being principled. Because in a world that constantly asks women to be more agreeable, more quiet, more palatable, these women choose to be more real. And that choice, over time, becomes their power. Smart women never settle for surface-level success because they know the world often applauds the image while ignoring the substance. They are not interested in simply looking accomplished or putting together the perfect social media highlight reel. They seek depth, growth, meaning, and legacy. These women aren't satisfied with checking off society's boxes, fancy titles, aesthetic homes, picture-perfect lives, if it all comes at the cost of a life that feels empty behind closed doors. They crave more than appearance. They pursue authenticity and purpose in everything they build. They understand that true success is not measured by applause or attention, but by alignment, living a life that feels right when no one's watching. That's why they invest in the hard work no one sees, healing their wounds, sharpening their minds, deepening their faith, building meaningful relationships, and developing their character. They read, they reflect, they pray, they rise. They don't chase every trend or follow the crowd because they know that fulfillment doesn't come from blending in. It comes from standing out with substance. These women have learned to ask deeper questions. Instead of "What do I have?" they ask, "Who am I becoming?" Instead of "How do I look?" they ask, "How do I lead?" They've realized that there's a difference between having success and being significant. And they're not afraid to walk away from things that look good on paper if it costs them peace, passion, or purpose in real life. They aren't intimidated by silence or solitude because they've learned how to sit with themselves and do the inner work that leads to lasting strength. Smart women don't build castles out of ego. They build lives out of character. They are more concerned with how they treat people than how many people follow them. They understand that building a meaningful life takes time, sacrifice, and a willingness to choose growth over comfort. They don't cut corners, they don't fake it. They don't settle for shortcuts when depth is what they're after. They are bold enough to define success on their own terms and brave enough to walk the road that aligns with their values, even if it means fewer people understand them. But that's the cost of authenticity, and these women have made peace with the fact that they'd rather be misunderstood for being real than admired for being fake, because they know that the reward of a deeply aligned life far outweighs the shallow validation of surface-level success. They play the long game, building, growing, and rising with intention, grace, and grit. As we reach the end of this journey together, remember that these 7 rules are more than just guidelines. They are the foundation of a life lived with purpose, strength, and unwavering integrity. Smart women don't just survive. They thrive by embracing their values, setting clear boundaries, and trusting themselves to navigate every challenge with grace and confidence. These rules are a call to honor who you are, to refuse anything less than respect and authenticity, and to become the architect of your own destiny. Thank you for taking the time to listen and reflect on these powerful truths. Your willingness to grow and commit to these principles is the first step toward a life filled with deeper fulfillment and extraordinary impact. Keep shining your light, standing firm in your convictions, and inspiring those around you. Together, we rise higher. Thank you for being part of this empowering conversation.